Hello, everybody. Trying to get a bit of natural light. Hello, everybody. So, welcome back to my channel. I'm George from Ireland. Anyway, so looking at Moldova, and that is a small country sandwiched in between Romania and Ukraine. And through history, it's either been part of Romania, part of the Russian Empire, part of the Ottoman Empire, and so on. So, Moldova's got two official languages, Russian and Romanian. But their version of Romanian, they used to call it Moldovan at some point. But like over 95%, it is the same as Romanian. They use some Russian loan words in that dialect, and they use some more old-fashioned words. Apart from that, it is just the same. So anyway, it was. Don't want to go too much into the history of it, but it's part of Romania after the First World War. The Soviet Union seized it in 1940. Then it was part of. Then it stayed that way really, apart from obviously being occupied by Germany and Romania in the Second World War. So that's Moldova. So been independent since 1991. So the president of Moldova is President Maya Sandu, the Harvard-educated liberal. She said that they've been informed by the Ukrainians of a Russian plot to oust her, that they would organize protests by the opposition, which would then turn into violence in order to force President Sandu out. Remember, last year, Moldova was formally accepted as a candidate for European Union membership. 0.6 million people. They can all gain Romanian citizenship if they want to, because Moldova is one of the poorest countries in Europe. I mean, Ukraine's even poorer. That's because obviously it's been laid waste by Russia's illegal war of aggression. And on, because remember, a Romanian passport, and therefore they can live and work in almost any European country, not just the European Union, but countries part of the European single market, such as Switzerland and Norway and so on. So they make more money elsewhere. So it's a country sort of emptying out. And obviously Putin doesn't like the breakup of the Soviet Union, and his unacceptance of the freedom of these other countries is what's led to this war. I don't mean just independence. I mean human rights and democracy and so on, the sort of things that he's adamant to deny to his own subjects. So Russia's been illegally occupying Transnistria, the very eastern edge of Moldova, since 1991, caused a civil war in Moldova, and 1,500 Russian soldiers there illegally occupying this which is a time warp from the Soviet Union, and is this it's got some sort of liminality. It's no man's land legally. Okay, legally it is part of Moldova, but Moldova's writ doesn't run there, and they say really just run by gangsters. Anyway, but Russia supplies oil and gas to Moldova, so it's heavily dependent on that. And Russia was gradually reducing the supply of oil and gas, making the price go up and up in Moldova, and making Moldova is really desperate. There were power cuts last year to remind the Moldovans that if they take the side of Ukraine, they can be frozen into submission. Because of military training and civilian clothes to enact violence, to seize hostages, and so on. There have been allegations that Russia has conspired to launch coup d'etats in other countries in Southeast Europe over the last few years. Now, I don't know if these accusations about Russia plotting to overthrow the government of Moldova are true, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit. They've done this sort of thing before, in Armenia and Georgia and so on. And people can say, tu quoque, and it's true that the United States has done this sort of thing, but not for quite a long time. So really, he would like it to be a satrapy of Russia. Putin would, and obviously, if Putin were to conquer Ukraine, then Moldova could easily be the next victim. On the other hand, this might be a golden opportunity for Moldova to try and take back Transnistria to defeat those 1,500 Russians, and they're obviously a problem for Ukraine because at the Ukraine's rear. Now they're not so many that they can't be, and Moldova allowed planes carrying Russian troops to land, who then go to Transnistria, and Moldova didn't dare take firm action. But remember, a significant minority of Moldovans are pro-Moscow. Some of them are Russophone, which doesn't necessarily make you pro-Moscow, but it does in some cases. And some of them have been taught to have pro-Russian nostalgia. They've just been bribed and or intimidated into being Putinites. So which way is it going to go? Now, notice the Moldovan government's applied to the EU. It's not applied to join NATO. That'd be too divisive. And the reaction from Russia would be too because they're Russian troops illegally occupying Article 5 of the NATO Charter. We're being illegally occupied. You've got to come and help us. Moreover, as such a small country, not a very wealthy country, they can't afford sophisticated military technology. What are they bringing to the party? They can't really contribute to the security of other EU countries. They can't even provide for their own. Not being disparaging about Moldova, but that is the situation. Anyway, so the previous Prime Minister, Natalia Gavrilica, she stood down. She's also pro-EU, a pro-Western liberal person. I think she's Harvard educated as well. And she says that Russia has engendered all these crises in Moldova and indeed by invading Ukraine. So she's been replaced by a man who's of the same ilk. So what's going to happen about it? Very little. Obviously, the United States is denouncing these Russia, claiming that this is the accusations are true, which seem quite credible to me. I'm not certain, but they're not taking any firm action because obviously Ukraine's taking up more of the attention, or the airtime, the money, the resources. They've got very little to spare for Moldova, but Moldova's fate is somewhat tied to that of Ukraine. So the Socialist Party in Moldova, you can forget about it being about and anything to do with social justice, is really the pro-Kremlin party, led by Igor Dodon, who was the president from 2016 to 2020, and his policy was to really yoke Moldova to Russia. But the people who look east and the people who look west. But really, what Putin's Russia is just a dead end. Anyway, so that's why there were these allegations. And if Russia did manage to take over Moldova, they'd have a vote their way in the United Nations. It might be a way to break sanctions. Could they send more soldiers there somehow? Well, how would they get there? They're not going to be able to travel over Ukrainian airspace or Romanian airspace. It's a bit unlikely. But you have the Moldova declare war on Ukraine, attacker from the east. And the trouble about Moldova is military and even its intelligence services are infiltrated with Russian agents. You just don't know who you can trust. Some of them are pro-Moscow for various reasons, because of mice, money, ideology, compromise, ego, any of these things. Right, so thank you so much for watching my channel, and make sure you subscribe. So on Patreon, and donate on PayPal, georgecallahan79@gmail.com, because I urgently need donations to keep the channel going. And remember, I help people with all sorts of redactions, essays, theses, dissertations, and so forth, elocution lessons, and private tutoring in history, English literature, English language, English as a foreign language, French, politics in government, A-levels, GCSEs, international baccalaureate, and so on. Think law, those special exams like LNAT. Right, thank you, everyone. Goodbye.